Hey everybody, it's been a while since I uploaded a replay of this tank, but it's one that I really think I need to start playing more often. This is the Object 430 Variant 2, the new, well, relatively speaking, Soviet Tier 9 medium tank. Now, it is a rear turreted tank, and, like the Object 416 before it, it does have limited turret traverse. It can only rotate its turret through 180 degree frontal arc, as opposed to the Object 416, whose turret rotation arc is about 160-170 degrees. Now this might sound like a terrible thing for a medium tank, but then you have to remember that this is quite an agile tank. It moves fast, it rotates quite quickly on its tracks, and this replay is not running very smoothly at all. And also, a lot of the time when you're driving a high tier medium, you don't actually need your turret to be able to point behind you unless you're trying to run away from something. And if this has to try and run away from something, it's in trouble anyway. If you're circling somebody, or if you're trying to get in close and get around them, really 180 degree arc is all you need. If you have to look past that, then you just sort of spiral in towards them. Now, the reason I decided to upload this game, playing with Sophie and Buzzard, is because it didn't play like El Haloof normally plays. Now, ever since they changed this map, I've had trouble adjusting to it. As fucked up as El Haloof used to be, it was at least something that was pretty easy to get used to. And it was also a lot more fun to play in the FV304 because you just bomb A2 forever. Now, however, the meta's changed a bit, and so this is why I'm a little apprehensive this early in the game. I've got up to this corner, and nobody's pushing. The reason is, every single enemy medium tank has actually abandoned this flank and is either camping their base or on the beach. In fact, their Tier 9 heavies have fucked off as well, leaving only the Tier 8 prefs, a Tier 7, a T21 light tank that shouldn't even be here, and eventually a T30 to protect this corner. Now, immediately one of the ISs manages to put a shot through my front, through my lower plate, which you can't see there. I lose my engine, I already used my repair kit on my tracks, which was in hindsight a mistake, and of course my fire extinguisher goes off because it just so happens to set my engine ablaze. 122mm shells will crit pretty often. However, the 430 Variant 2 is pretty good at this little thing called side scraping, so that's exactly what I began to do for a medium tank at any rate. Unfortunately, the angle that the IS-6s and KV-5 are presenting as they come around the corner is just not what I need. The gun is basically the same as the T-54's Top Gun, the good Top Gun. It only has 201mm of penetration on AP, and the angle these guys are giving me is just too much. Sophie and Buzzard get a quick double tap into that, or not, sorry, Buzzard, the tank behind Sophie, the Panther, get a quick double tap into that scout. I go for a shot on the T-30 there, but I don't get a pen. I decided to load heat to deal with the IS-6s because something needed to be done about them before they killed me, and I just could not pen them with AP. This is why I carry heat for situations like this. Load the skills as one of the IS-6s. Now, an interesting point to note is, in a few moments here, I get penned through the upper front plate by a 122mm shell. Now, because the upper front plate is 120mm thick and raked back at a just extreme angle, I wonder what that IS-6 was firing at my medium tank. Could it be APCR? Well, I can't say for sure since I don't have the mod installed that tells you what ammo you're being shot with, but I have a pretty good suspicion that's exactly what happened, so I don't know why he was complaining about me firing a couple of heat rounds at him. Particularly since the IS-6 is known to be a good tank for beating up on people, since it gets preferential matchmaking, won't lose credits firing gold as long as you actually hit things, and is just a good all-round heavy tank. Luckily for me, we're able to drive off the bulk of the enemy tanks. The T-30 foolishly exposes his upper front plate, trying to get a shot on me, and gets punished for it. KV3 isn't paying attention, the IS is one-shottable, and so is the last IS-6, which is run away, and incidentally the one that was complaining about my heat hammer. You can see just how slowly this tank moves with a crippled engine, and unfortunately it means I eat an arty shot as I try to roll down towards the few remaining enemy tanks. Now, interestingly, their M103 has actually made it up our base ramp, and is being held up by a couple of tier 7s. The E75 is still on its switchback. If you want a good example of how to be completely useless in a tier 9 heavy tank in a tier 9 match, that's how you do it. They contributed absolutely nothing at all to the match and lost their team the game. Had they been in A2, A3 where they should have been, and indeed had the enemy heavies pushed aggressively into A1, this would have been a much closer fight, possibly even a win for their side. You cannot cede control of the entire A1 through B2 corner to the enemy team and expect a win. Especially if you then send all your heavily armoured tanks and mediums to the south. It's just, it's stupid. There's no reason to do it. Either way, for somebody who very nearly got killed at the beginning of the match, I've now managed to scoop up just shy of 2.5k damage and 3 kills. My platoon are doing pretty well. It looks like we've set ourselves up for a Brothers in Arms medal here. The 103 gets cleaned up by the by the tier 7s he was fighting, by the IS-2. And watch Buzzard clown the absolute living shit out of this terrible Pershing driver. This is a prime example of somebody who shouldn't be driving a medium. He's getting completely baited by Buzzard, while I just slowly move in towards him with my crippled engine and blast him quite happily. He doesn't even get a shot. 3.4k damage. I'm pretty happy with that result, and this again demonstrates the importance of establishing map control and not sending your 2 strongest tanks off to do something stupid in a pointless corner of the map. Most maps in this game have a certain area which is of such critical importance you cannot let the enemy have it without risking a loss. Even if you have a full team of Unicums versus a full team of absolute tomatoes, you cannot give away crucial map positions. On El Haluf, A2 has always been one of them, and it still is, even though the map has changed. This top left corner up here is absolutely vital. If the enemy take this, they can then roll into these positions here and shoot across directly into your base exits, bottling you up in here, and then they can just pick you apart at will. If it's encounter, it's even more pertinent because the encounter cap is down in this area. But this area here is just so important, you can't give it away, because if you do, as you saw there, if, say, the North Spawn doesn't push past A3, which is what they failed to do, they just stopped in A3 and tried to play peek and poke around the corner, it means you give all of this cover and all of this space to your enemy to maneuver with. They have a possible flank on you here, they can position all along this ridge here, this ridge here, and all along here with impunity and shoot back towards your support tanks, which are usually sitting up in this area. And they can flank you through there. But as well as that, they then have this corner, this corner, this corner, a hill there. I think there's a slight hill up there you can use to hold down. And there's slight rises all through here that it's just too good of a defensive position. You cannot give this up without a fight. And especially these days, there's very little point sending mediums down to the beach, maybe 1 or 2. I usually would say light tanks only. There's no real fight on the beach anymore. Nobody really goes there. Mediums even come up here. Usually you'll have light tanks head down the beach, and maybe a medium will sneak up that ramp every now and then, but this position has become ever more important since the map changes, and the beach has basically just become somewhere bads go to die. If you try and push through the south of the map after ceding the north to the enemy, it's not going to work because they're going to have shots on you as you go up the switchback and they come back down through here into the valley. It's just not on. Don't do it. This is like giving up the hill on Malinovka or giving up the hill on Himmelsdorf. It's not something you do. It's not something you can afford to do. Or the village on Ruinberg. There's a pivotal position on every map that you cannot give up without risking a loss. And this area is it. Now, as to the topic of side scraping in a medium tank, there are very, very few that can actually do it competently, and really what I was doing there is not something that a medium should be doing. However, because I had my engine crippled by a lucky shot at the start, it wasn't really even a good shot, it was just a lucky one, I didn't really have much other choice. With no engine, you aren't mobile enough to do your job as a medium, and with no way of easily getting around the enemy or away from them without getting shot, I decided to just hole up and make the best of what I had. I was also pretty safe in the knowledge that this is one of the most armoured mediums in the game from its frontal aspect. The Object 430 and the Object 430 Variant 2 both have 120mm front armour plates, upper and lower. Both of them are very well angled. The 430 Variant 2 has a bit better angle on its upper plate for obvious reasons. They both have roughly the same turret. In fact, well, it's really almost exactly the same. It's 248mm frontal. The cheeks are kind of low, so shots high on the turret will tend to pen you, and you also have flat areas where the rangefinder windows are. They're pretty easy to identify. If you look at the front of the turret, you can tell. The cupolas also stick up enough to be easy targets, but with that said, if you avoid giving the enemy easy shots on your turret, or if you force them to take snapshots, chances are they're going to have trouble pinning you. And with the hull as well, if you can find a good place to wedge in your lower plate to cover that, your upper plate is going to do a hell of a lot of bouncing. The side armor on the tank isn't the best, but because of the nice broad tracks and, you know, if you're good at angling, you shouldn't have too many worries. Now, the 430 Variant 2 has flat sides. The 430 proper, the Tier 10, has the same sort of slanted over-track hull sides as the IS-3, the IS-7, that whole family of tanks. The exact, and the Object 140, I should mention, the exact thing that makes them so bouncy from the side, which makes it a little more effective, but because this has a rear turret, it's just better suited to that kind of play. Now, I'm not saying you should side scrape often in this thing, but I'm saying it's a viable option. At the end of the day, the Object 430 Variant 2 is more or less a traditional medium in its role. It just has to do it kind of differently because of its weird layout. It is a very good tank. It's got the same phenomenal gun and gun handling as the T-54. It has decent armor for a medium, not quite E50 tier, but pretty close, I would say. And its mobility is actually really good, so there's a lot to like. It's also got a good camera rating. And it's just one of those weird sort of flipper baby tanks that, I don't know, I can't help but like. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.